Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Hawks Latest, your number one source for news, updates, rumors, opinions, and you guessed it, the latest and the greatest regarding the Atlanta Hawks. I'm your host, Zach Langley, aka Langley ATL, and today we've got several updates, more speculative. This is going to be kind of a free agency special. We've got one player that the Hawks had interest in, and then I'm going to talk about three that the Hawks could potentially look at to fill that final roster spot. So, one of the more surprising offseason developments was that of Marcus Smart that we learned actually yesterday, that the Hawks did check in on him, and we're going to talk about that more in a minute. But, they have an ongoing search for backcourt help. And this report kind of confirms it. This open roster spot could define the final structure of Atlanta's 2025-2026 roster. So we're gonna take a look at Smart's Atlanta's previous interest in Smart before he signed with the Lakers, and then also three interesting names: Russell Westbrook, DeLon Wright, and Boowbo. All of whom are still free agents and could potentially fit the Hawks' current needs. So, without further ado, let's begin. And we'll talk about one of the biggest recent headlines in the league was the Washington Wizards buying out Marcus Smart's contract. Really not too long after acquiring him. They did just recently trade for him, last season. And Smart ended up signing with the Los Angeles Lakers as soon as he hit waivers. I think there was a verbal agreement that was already in place. He's going to be a good fit in LA, and I think that's probably the best landing spot for him. It's a move that caught many off guard, though. I mean, the NBA offseason was getting really dry, and then we had some news that, like that. It's just unexpected stuff. It's what keeps the NBA offseason great. Several teams were reportedly inquiring about trading for him before he hit the buyout market, though. And I'm surprised, a deal didn't come to light, because I think Marcus Smart is while he has declined a little bit, I think he's too good to be a buyout player. But according to NBA insider Jake Fisher, the Atlanta Hawks were among the teams that were expressing interest in Smart before he was bought out, and they were talking to Washington about a potential trade for him, which is very interesting. Other teams included the Milwaukee Bucks and the Miami Heat. I mean, Fisher didn't really go into too much detail regarding the real depth of Atlanta's interest, or how far talks went. I don't think Smart would be a player Atlanta would get rid of any real asset for. Atlanta was probably just dangling some second or two, and Washington was just gauging the field of interest. And I'm just surprised Washington just accepted the buyout and didn't necessarily try to get whatever assets they could out of him. Because I do think there would be teams that would have been able to offer at least a little bit for him. He's not someone with crazy value now, but he is still a valuable player on the court. Like I said, Fisher didn't explain the detail of the depth, but it's clear the Hawks front office was exploring all avenues to bolster their rotation, which is great. It's a very smart offseason approach, and they've been very aggressive this whole offseason. Hypothetically, Smart would have made a lot of sense for Atlanta if you really just break down his game. He's a hard-nosed defender. He's a high IQ veteran. He has a lot of experience in this league, winning and being in every possible team situation. He's someone who could help build on Atlanta's defensive culture that they're currently trying to build. With Dyson Daniels, and that guard room would be super lethal defensively. Outside of Trae Young, who is still improving defensively despite his size limitations. Adding Marcus Smart to a room of Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Dyson Daniels would make for opposing guards to just be in hell. That unfortunately did not happen, and that would have been something that would have been super awesome. And so we're not going to talk about it really too much, but the big question here is, what were the Wizards asking for in return? That remains unclear and likely always will. Considering Atlanta's recent transactions, bringing in, signing Nikola Jurisic to a standard deal, and then Caleb Houston, there's just one roster spot remaining, and although Smart's chapter is now closed, the Hawks' interest in him does speak volume, about what they are still looking for. We've talked a lot about, they're going to be bringing in a center with this last roster spot, or a point guard or a small forward. It looks like they are still gauging interest in really all of these positions and I don't think they have one specific goal in mind with this last roster spot. But if there's one name that's still available in free agency that could immediately energize a second unit, it's Russell Westbrook. The 9-time All-Star and former MVP just had a very, very solid year in Denver. One of his best years in recent memory. He's bounced around the league a little bit and definitely struggled, but I think his Denver year was very good. I'm surprised Denver hasn't immediately brought him back. He played a key rotational role for that 50-win Nuggets team, who really could have won another championship if they didn't run into the Thunder. They almost took down the Thunder, but Westbrook was a key contributor in that. At 36, I mean, Westbrook posted 13.3 points, 6 assists, and 1.4 steals a game, while shooting a career best 52% from inside the arc, and his best three-point percentage in nearly a decade. That's a significant development, showing that his game is still adapting as he gets older. I mean, that's not just serviceable, that's impactful basketball off the bench. Just a very good sign for Westbrook's game. What's strange is that no team has claimed him off the waivers yet. He's still on the market and, available for any team that's willing to, take the leap and go get him. I mean, given the Hawks' interest in Smart, it's safe to say that they are still hunting for a veteran playmaker off the bench. Obviously, with the uncertainty around some of the backup point guards in Atlanta right now, especially Kobe Buffkin. I mean, someone who can stabilize the second unit and create offense in the half court like Westbrook would be great. I mean, especially after losing Karis LeVert, and we talked about that last episode, but Westbrook would be a guy who could fill that void. Just given his shot creation and leadership. That being said, Atlanta may prioritize bringing in a big man with that final roster spot, and that's definitely what I think they will do, and I've talked about this several times, but if they pivot, Westbrook is clearly the most high-profile player, most high-profile and upside guard left. And if Atlanta is looking to, for someone a little more budget-friendly and familiar with the organization, DeLon Wright makes all the sense in the world. This is definitely one of my favorite players, and I think it would be a dream scenario with this last roster spot. He is a veteran combo guard who played for the Hawks during the 2021-2022 season. During that stint, he quietly became one of the best complementary pieces to Trae Young. It wasn't about, all the things he was doing in the box score and the numbers he was putting up, but just the real impact he had on the floor next to Trae Young. Despite, not being that big of a player, he's a defensive-minded guard who is a great veteran presence and shoots efficiently from three. Really the exact type of player you need next to Trae Young. While Wright may not have, Smart's physicality or Westbrook's highlight reel athleticism, he brings a constant defensive presence, efficient shooting, and really just a great demeanor under pressure. And he's exactly the type of player that helps teams win games. This is a winning player without a doubt. His whole career he's been able to contribute to winning. Not with flash, but with real execution. What he does on the court is just not to be, taken lightly. Bringing him back on a 1-year minimum deal would be probably one of the most effective moves Atlanta could do. And I would really, really like for them too. I mean, he was a fan favorite when he played in Atlanta. A lot of fans rallied behind him and were sad to see him go. I was definitely one of them. He fills the same archetype the Hawks kind of sought with Smart. The previous interest in Smart just opens up a lot for Atlanta because it shows that they're still looking for a backup point guard. And I think DeLon Wright is probably the smartest option and also the safest option. I mean, he could also bring a, mentor-like presence for younger guards like Buffkin or Jurisic or Keaton Wallace, just guys that aren't exactly ready to be real contributors on a contending team, which the Hawks are, striving to be. But they could get there, and I mean, having a veteran like Wright or even Westbrook, just to kind of take over this year for them and show them the ropes, I think could be very beneficial for the future. He fits the locker room, the play style, and really the budget, and for that reason, he's probably the most realistic target of the group. So now we're gonna talk about a wild card, and I know y'all are going to be happy that I'm talking about this. I've definitely been seeing a lot of it in the comments on these videos. Boowbo. We're finally going to talk about Boowbo. This is what the fans want, and you know what? I would be on board with it. Y'all want him for good reason, I will say. He has his issues, but he is a 7'3" unicorn type player who has in flashes shown real potential, and there is still time for him to become a contributor in the nightly rotation for an NBA team. In just 12 minutes per game, he averaged 6.8 points, 3 rebounds, and did so with efficiency from both inside the arc and outside the arc. And this was last year with the Phoenix Suns. He's been on 3 NBA teams since entering the league in 2019. But last season with the Suns, I think he was really good. For his role that he played, he has legitimate offensive skill. That is not to be taken lightly. Boowbo can be effective offensively. He can hit threes. He can put the ball on the floor, finish around the rim with touch, just due to his height and versatility, just to really get to the rim. He also has the reach to be a shot blocking presence. I would like to see his defensive instincts be better, just given his frame. Consistency has really also been his main issue. Phoenix is unlikely to bring him back. It's been reported by several insiders that they are not really focused on bringing him back, and it's looking more unlikely that they do. He becomes a very intriguing option for Atlanta's 15th roster spot and third big behind Kristaps Porzingis and Onyeka Okongwu. He wouldn't be expected to play heavy minutes or really many minutes in general. It would probably not be too great if he played nightly rotation minutes, but in a third big role, behind those two guys who should take up all the minutes. He could step in during injuries. He could be just fine in that role, or blowouts, and really just provide real production. And you can't say with a lot of the guys that we've mentioned in previous videos for who could be Atlanta's third big or just 15th roster spot that they can still fill the stat sheet while affecting the game. So Boowbo's definitely one of those guys. And while he's not my top pick for this 15th roster spot, I definitely would go with a more safer option and more veteran presence. It's definitely intriguing, and I understand you guys' interest. I would be on board. Add all of that into the fact that Atlanta would then have 2 players over 7'2" on the same roster, and that's not something a lot of NBA teams can say. All of a sudden, you're a nightmare matchup in terms of length if Bull were to get actual rotation minutes. It's not the safest option. Not at all, but it's certainly a very enticing one, and I can see the interest, especially from a long-term development perspective. He's bounced around the league, and maybe he can find a long-term home in free agency, whether that's in Atlanta or somewhere else. But a very exciting player. I would be on board with it. So what should the Hawks do with that final roster spot? Should they go for a high upside guard like, bringing in Westbrook or reuniting with a familiar face and DeLon Wright? I would vote Wright. Out of all these guys I mentioned, I think Wright should take that final roster spot. But they could also take a swing on a guy like Boowbo, and I know you guys are going to love that. So each of these moves really says something about where the organization is headed. Are they really focused on contending next season? And I think don't take this last roster spot with as much weight as I'm probably putting on it, but it is very important in just setting a culture, because there are a lot of great free agents left, and whatever Atlanta decides to do with it, I believe in this front office, so I will be on board with whatever, but there are certainly some guys I favor over the others. So just let me know in the comments. I mean, what move makes the most sense to you guys? I think it's DeLon Wright, but then there's also guys like Al Horford, but that's looking increasingly unlikely given, we haven't really talked about that in recent days just because signs are pointing to that he would sign with Golden State, but you never know. Things happen. So if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss a single update here on Hawks Latest. We're going to continue pushing out videos every single day. Just because this is the driest part of the offseason doesn't mean we don't have stuff to talk about. So I appreciate you guys for tuning in, and I'll see you next time. I'm Zach Langley. Thank you guys for watching.